Confirmation of the minutes from the November 24th meeting, 2015. Councillor Fracadakis, you'd like to move that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. There are a number of speakers, and we'll get to that. Is depthless?
No deputations.
Sorry, there's no deps, but there are a number of presenters. Of the presenters? There are no speakers at the moment. Oh, no? No, no speakers at the moment, just presenters. Any additional communications?
One that was distributed.
Okay, we have additional communications, ED 9.71. I think you all have that on your desk. Encourage you to take a look at that. It's on the Toronto Horticultural Exposition for Canada's Sesquicentennial. Okay, does everybody have that? Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Thank you. All right, so members, just moving right along, if I can. We have a new component part of this committee. This is, I believe, the first time we're actually doing this, and it's the Peer Awards for 2015. We've been talking with staff about this, recognizing staff for their great performance and excellent contribution and so on, and I think that it's important for us to recognize good work. And so I just got this list a moment ago, and so I don't know who the winners are, so if you bear with me, I'm going through that. Yes, the gold envelope, please. Price Waterhouse Cooper.
Price Waterhouse?
That's right, exactly. All right. No, thank you. All right, no, thank you. So, so I have here, and I'll just read through, and again, as I just received this document, so on, there is EDC staff recognized program peer standing for Performance Excellence Employee Recognition Awards, and I'll just give you an overview of the outline. So for those who are in the audience and members who are committee who are for the first time recognizing this, the program developed in 2014 was designed to recognize staff going above and beyond the call of public service development and culture. Today we are recognizing the nominated individuals or individuals or teams and announcing the winners. A majority of the staff nominated are in the room. Can I have a show of hands for all the staff who've been nominated? Wow, that's all of you. Amazing. Big round of applause. Amazing. Yes. Wonderful. That is absolutely amazing. So you're all winners as far as I'm concerned, quite frankly. Majority of them are here. You've seen them. And so without further ado, and as I said, I'm reading this verbatim here. So the category of exceptional innovation, honorable mention to nominees are the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation Cultural Village in the Aboriginal Pavilion at Fort York as part of the Pan Am Games, and the staff members were Mike, why don't I get you to read all of this? You're the general manager, so why don't you come over here and go through this, since you've had this for a while.
You think
it's not about the pronunciation. It's about this. I will actually take them.
I'm only kidding.
Fire it back to me, Mike. I'm sorry. You're not giving it to you anymore. I'm taking it back. All right, so forget it. I'm not giving it to him. I was being nice. So we have staff members, Robin Kerr. Mike, you can chime in anytime. I'm going to say Edwin. Ewan Wardell. And staff at Fort York. So honorable mention. Big round of applause for those groups. So, would you stand? Would you stand? Where are they? Are they here? There we are. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And we certainly recognize you for working closely with the Aboriginal leaders and partners of Mississauga of the New Credit First Nation to bring the village to Fort York, which was created with a strong linkage and involvement with the committee. And, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this Exceptional Innovation Award, the City of Toronto Hosts Welcome and Engagement Program, Sue Holland, Kimberly Baines. They're the winners, so congratulations. So can we ask you to come up, and we ask the General Manager and the DCM and members of the committee to stand? And we'll give them their awards now, okay? Will you come forward, please, for your award? Photo op, yes. We need to, there's a lot of verbiage here. Members, can you come up and, innovation, the well, it doesn't say here. Okay, so it didn't say in my notes, but they designed the Toronto sign. Zabe, are you the photographer? Sure. You should come over here, Zabe, because that's on an angle.
We've got photographers over there too.
Zabe? Zabe's going to do one?
One more for safety. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Mike, I'm going to have you do the next one. The names are all perfectly fine.
The next category is exceptional customer service. Demonstrated success in providing the highest level of customer service to customers, clients, and community partners. This can apply to an individual or to a group. So, the honorable mention goes to Event Pal and Anna Roddick and Laura Elkin.
Stand up.
So the two of them work closely with many different divisions to create a single point of entry for clients of the city who want to use various city facilities for their special event, and involve working with many different divisions to be able to have a single form to be used to make that application. The winner is Assembly Hall, with Denise Dicken, Nafai Sheikh, Suri Broderick, Eric Vittorini, Donald Foley, Trina Campbell, and Frank Lazarak, and I apologize for murdering your names.
Come on down.
Because the Assembly Hall is operating today, only a couple of staff could come over to do that, so they're representing all of the staff.
All right. Come on up, please. Might as well just stay up here. Thank you. Okay, Mike, keep going. The Hollywood Foreign Press? Yeah, actually, I'm not sure.
The third of four categories is exceptional results, going above and beyond to demonstrate success in the completion of a workplace project or initiative which contributed positively to the division or section. This can apply to an individual or a team. The honorable mention goes to Food Starter with Michael Wolfson, Chris Rickett, and Nina Gezi. Food Starter is a new food incubator, about 20,000 square feet in the northwest side of Toronto, with a huge amount of effort by them. We have gone from a paltry closed 2,000 square feet to a fabulous new facility, which we will have an opening once we've made sure all the kinks are worked out in the operations there. So the Oscar goes to There's several honorable mentions. So the next honorable mention is for the Magna Carta exhibit, Law, Liberty, and Legacy, and the staff list is about a half of my division. Wayne Reeves, Linda Irwin, Robert Kerr, Ewan Wandel, Stuart Udden, Alina Messina, Lauren Lee Hodgson, Kristen Zhukevich, Sharon Harding, Adriana Prosser, Andrea Ballet, Alex Avachuk, Jane French, Karen Black, David O'Hara, Richard Haynes, Cheryl DeLisi, Frida Kemp, Michelle Alonziak, Larry Ostola, Chris Baker, Joan Fussell, and Gabriel Major. Well done.
Mike, did you miss two names? Sharif?
Fred?
You missed Sharif's name. There's Sharif.
I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you
All right.
miss Ilana? Ilana?
Lana, Messina, Mrs. Messina.
Ah, okay, great. So, thank you.
I'm not doing a very good job here. The third nomination comes from the North York facility of Gibson Park, a brand-new park in North York associated with Gibson House. It's a beautiful little oasis just off of Yonge Street, just north of the Civic Center. The persons involved in this were Wayne Reeves, Dory Billich, Elizabeth Nelson Raphael, and staff from Parks, Forestry, Recreation, and from Menkes Developments. So congratulations, everybody. And from the east side and or from the Don Valley, I guess, the winner is the 2015 Luminous Vale Lighting Celebration Staff Operations Group. Otherwise known as Team Alpha. Many of you were there when we lighted up the Luminous Vale on the Danforth, a very significant milestone for compassionate treatment of our citizens in trouble. And these folks did an unbelievable job because we gave them can't increase the budget, and you've got to make a deadline, and they managed to achieve both.
Smile big. We're gonna make sure Norm tweets this. Big deal.
We have one final award, and there's, I think, only two people left that haven't stood up yet. So if I've screwed up the names, there'll be more, but this is a demonstration of exemplary leadership. This goes to an individual in the division. The honorable mention goes to Rob McMonagle for the Urban Wood Roadmap to Life. There are many different things. Many different things that Rob did, especially taking off from the maple leaf tree and the repurposing of the wood there, creating a lot of initiative with the community and the leadership with the community to create an urban forestry repurposing industry with sawmills locally in Toronto, furniture manufacturers and other manufacturers using wood that is being harvested from the City of Toronto. And the winner is, for her leadership of the community arts programs, Nadira Pattison. Nadira is continuously showing great leadership In her management of the Community Arts Program, she works tirelessly to make sure everyone is fully engaged, from staff colleagues to senior management to local counselors to a very wide variety of community stakeholders. Cultural Hotspots is but one example of innovative programming that has demonstrated her ability to lead with zeal and innovation. And she does this all with great energy, infectious optimism, and outstanding respect for all our stakeholders. Thank you very much, Chair.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you very much. Another big round of applause for all of our outstanding winners and our outstanding employees and outstanding division leaders.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that the recipients all kept their speeches so short. And I think Zabe should move to see if we can televise the awards.
Thank you. So all those in favor of that motion? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, Zabe, you've got your marching orders. Okay, members, we do have, obviously now back to the regular scheduled agenda. I am told that we are a little bit pressed for time. We have Mr. Benjamin Toll is here, who is no stranger to this committee. We're very fortunate actually to have him. And instead of going through the agenda, I'd like to simply just go to Mr. Toll's presentation, because he does have to leave very shortly. So with your indulgences, members, are you okay with that? So we'll invite Mr. Toll to speak, allow him to make his presentation. So we're varying things as such, and I will go through the agenda after Mr. Toll is through. Mr. Toll, good morning and welcome. Thank you very much. And I may ask you to begin, sir.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are you comfortable there, sir? Are you? Okay, fantastic. If you're good, we can hear you. Thank you.
So I see a lot of smiling faces here. You will not be smiling when I'm finished with you, because as you know, the global economy is facing challenges that we haven't seen since 2008. And the question is why, and the other question is to what extent it is a good thing or a bad thing. Let's start with the obvious, and I think it's very important to understand that what we are seeing now is basically a rebalancing of global disequilibrium that actually the source was the 2008 recession. Let's start with the big one, and that's oil prices. Of course, we are not Alberta, but what's happening in Alberta and the global economy regarding oil is impacting this city in a very significant way, starting with interest rates going through the dollar and even potentially an impact on real estate here in Toronto. So I think that the starting point is to say something about oil. Now, nobody really knows where oil will be over the next 6 months, but we do know that this crash, if you wish, was what we call a black swan, an unpredictable event. And I believe that we have to understand the motivation why Saudi Arabia stopped producing or did not cut production in any significant way, and why it basically stopped being the swing producer in the market. Until this crisis, the Saudis were the swing producer in the market. They were the price manager. Whenever somebody went up with their quota, they went down to make sure that everybody is happy. In November of 2014, they went to the market for the first time ever, and they said, we do not care where oil prices go. That was the black swan, and that led to this huge decline in the price of oil. The question is why, because if we understand the motivation, we can say something about the future trajectory. Why? Yes, it's about Russia. Yes, it's about Iran. Yes, it's about killing shale oil and oil sands. But that's all the derivatives. The main reason, I believe, is alternative energy. They know, as well as we do, that within 10 years, given current investment in green energy, oil will not be as important or relevant, and therefore they will not be as important or relevant. They know that, and they are trying to diversify their economy. They are building 3 universities over there. They are investing heavily in manufacturing, in even tourism. But in order to diversify your economy, you need time. What they're trying to do, I believe, is basically buy time. Because if oil prices are at 100, you are motivated to invest in green. If oil prices are at $30, you are less motivated. So this exercise, I believe, the main motivation is to slow down investment or the speed at which we invest in alternative energy in order to buy time. This is significant, and we are starting to see it already. We see reduced investment in wind, in solar, exactly the opposite of what we should be doing. So there is a significant impact here that we have to understand. Therefore, I believe that this is sustainable. I don't know whether or not oil will go back to 40, 45, 50. It probably will, but it will be a very slow process. But much more important, with major implications for Alberta, but also for Canada, is for the first time, and we have to understand that, for the first time, we don't have a swing producer in the market. We don't have this price manager. This means that volatility will control the agenda. What was amazing about the last cycle was not only the fact that oil prices were elevated, but also the fact that they were extremely stable. Today, you don't have this stability. What I'm telling you here is that oil will not rest. This means even if tomorrow oil prices go up to 50, 60 bucks, and you are a CEO of an oil company in Alberta, you are not investing. You are not investing because you are not sure to what extent prices will stay there. This has significant implications for Canada because it means that the correlation between oil prices and investment is much lower. You might see oil prices rising, but you won't see the investment. This means that this time it's real for Alberta. Alberta is Texas of 20 years ago. Texas was Alberta. And now they have finance, they have tourism, they have high tech, and they have energy. That's where Alberta is going in between. Unfortunately, I believe this is only the second or third inning of this exercise in Alberta. Of course, as we know, Alberta is over there, Toronto is here, but we feel it. We feel it because the dollar is going down. Sorry, the dollar is going down. We have a situation in which interest rates are going down, maybe next week, with major implications for a lot of activities in this city. So that's oil. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean for the rest of the global economy? And given the fact that Toronto is a global city, we have to understand that. Ironically, I view this as a positive development from a long-term perspective. Why? Because we are in the midst of a huge transfer of funds, of money, from producing countries to consuming countries. From OPEC, from Japan, from Germany, to the US, to Canada, to the Eurozone in general. 1% of global GDP is now being transferred. That's exactly what we are seeing also in Canada, a transfer of funds from Alberta to Toronto. So this is a positive story. Unfortunately, as we all know, the pain is always faster than the gain. So we are in the midst of actually the pain. And I believe that 2016 will be a transition year, and you will see more gain in 2017, especially for cities like Toronto, because the de facto tax cut vis-a-vis lower gasoline prices is significant. We are getting interest rates that are still very low. I'll talk about interest rates in a second. And we are getting the dollar down, which is always good for manufacturing. We'll talk about that. So we have a whole story here that eventually will benefit Toronto. So unfortunately, it's really bad, significantly bad for Alberta, But the positive will come for the rest of the country, including Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. This is just happening slowly. Now, interest rates might go down again in Canada next week. We don't know. The market is already discounting the possibility. The dollar is below 70 cents already. We know in the US they actually went up a little bit. But the issue with the US is that the US is the only force that is moving in the right direction. I'll talk about this in a second because it has major implications for Toronto, but before that, I must discuss the source of the global uncertainty, and that's China. And given the fact that China is a major source of business with Toronto, and I would suggest also a major force in our real estate market, we have to understand what's happening there. China is slowing down rapidly. The official numbers are that the Chinese economy is now expanding by 7%, down from 10%. However, everybody that is following China, like myself, we all know that 7% is not the right number. The right number is probably 4%. Because if you look at real activity, something that you can measure, like freight activity, like electricity demand, you can see that it's consistent with 4%, not 7%. So China is slowing down more rapidly than officially they're communicating to us. But there is nothing new here. There is nothing new here. We know that they're slowing down rapidly. So why all of a sudden the market is so nervous? Why all of a sudden people are getting so nervous about China? We've seen it in the summer and we're seeing it now. And China is the source of this uncertainty. The reason is that until that point, people said, yes, China is slowing down, but the Chinese authorities have the monetary might, the fiscal might, and the political ability to deal with the situation. So whatever happens, they will deal with it and everything will be fine. So the market was numb about China. Then the stock market in China went down. And you know, the stock market in China is nothing more than a casino. We know that. So it went down, and the government made the mistake of putting this credibility on the line and trying to save the stock market, and you cannot save the stock market even if you are the Communist Party of China. And the market got nervous about the ability of the Chinese government to control the situation. So this crisis that we are going through in China, with major implications for our city, is a crisis of credibility, not a crisis of fundamentals, because from a fundamental perspective, nothing has changed in China. Now, China is not a normally functioning market. They have major issues. They have debt. Relative to GDP, some provinces have more debt than what you see in Greece. They have real estate that's basically a bubble in some pockets. And they have shadow banking. Shadow banking is like subprime, rising and rising and rising. And obviously, they're very nervous about it. I must tell you this. You know, I was in a conference. It was an OECD conference. And there was a Chinese delegation. And somebody gave a speech from China. And then everything was okay, according to the speech. And then somebody asked about the shadow banking system. Listen to this. He stepped aside from the podium. Somebody else replaced him. This somebody else was very young. I think he was 12 or something. And he was reading from a statement. He was very nervous. Obviously, they are very nervous about that. This is a crisis of credibility, not a crisis of fundamentals. But even here, this is a positive, a big positive, and all kinds of small negatives. What is the positive? The positive with major implications for our manufacturing sector. The positive is that China is changing. China is changing in a big way. China is transferring economic power from infrastructure, from the manufacturing sector to the consumer. That's why they're slowing down. By design, because they are trying to be more balanced, more normal. They cannot continue with this one-sided economy where export is everything and nobody's doing anything. Their savings rate is almost 40%. because they don't have the social safety net. So people have to save. Can you imagine if their savings rate goes down from 40% to 30%? That will be a wave of consumption. That's what they're trying to do. So they're trying to transfer economic power from infrastructure to the consumer, and that's why they're slowing down. That's why commodity prices are actually going down, because China is not only slowing down, but it is also becoming less commodity intensive. Because if you are investing in infrastructure, in manufacturing, it's copper, it's aluminum, it's energy. If you are going to the consumer, it's credit cards. So China is becoming less commodity intensive. That's a good thing. That's a good thing, but in between, China will be tested, and the real test will be when the unemployment rate starts rising. Then we will see how committed they are to reforms. Therefore, as a city, we have to understand that China is a source of uncertainty for the next 2 years until we get this equilibrium back to semi-normal. China also will be rising very slowly, but I believe that the Chinese consumer will be a major force determining our export story. Because we have the Y generation in China, 250 million young Chinese people who never experienced poverty in their lives. Their propensity to consume is higher than the average American teenager. And what they want is quality products and a brand name. As a city, as a country, we have to find a way to get into those markets, or at the minimum to integrate our supply chains into the US in order to get into this market. But that's only a pocket. The rest is actually manufacturing going down, infrastructure going down. Talking about manufacturing, we know that the dollar is down by 30%, and if the Bank of Canada cuts again, it will go lower. The question is why we are not seeing a huge increase in manufacturing activity in this city and in this country. Why manufacturing today is not booming? It should, according to Economics 101, it should be in the sky. The question is why. First of all, we have to realize that at 70 cents, the dollar is not extremely cheap. The dollar is more or less where it should be, between 70 and 75. Parity with the dollar, with the US dollar, was the abnormal situation. Back then, you may recall, Canada was the darling of the G7. The only country without a real estate bubble, the only country without a financial market crisis, the only country with a reasonable fiscal situation. And people said, Canada, where is Canada? Over there. Okay, let's put money over there. It was hot money that supported the dollar at parity and beyond parity, and this was an economic accident. Unfortunately, with major implications for this city. During this economic accident, we lost between 10 and 20% capacity in our manufacturing sector. Our manufacturing sector shrank during the dark days of parity. And now it's back to 30 to 70 cents the dollar, but we are not seeing a significant increase. The question is why? Two big reasons. One, a lot of what we sell today to the US, 70% of it, goes directly to the US manufacturing sector. Not to the consumer in the US, but to the US manufacturing sector. This means that their manufacturing sector that is struggling because their dollar is high, they are slowing down, therefore our manufacturing sector is unable to take advantage of the improving American economy. The second reason, and that's extremely important from our perspective, is that we lost 10 to 20% capacity. So we don't have the capacity to take advantage of what's happening in the US and even a lower dollar, because we simply don't have the capacity. So we want, but we can't. It will take a long time to rebuild this capacity. Third, the auto sector is not part of this improvement. Because the auto sector, here we are competing more and more and more with Mexico, not the US. And we are losing market share at a rate we haven't seen before because wages in Mexico are still extremely low. Their productivity rising, and their currency went down as much as our currency. Therefore, I cannot see how we can win here very quickly. Not only, and that's extremely important, not only are we losing market share to Mexico, we are also losing market share to southern states in the US because they are closer to the Mexican border. So the Great Lake states, including Ontario, losing market share to southern states because the Mexican producers want their suppliers to be an hour from them, not 10 hours from them. So the non-auto manufacturing is where we are going to see a significant increase. And we are going to rebuild this lost capacity. And that's where Toronto enters the story, because the new capacity that will emerge is going to be a very different capacity. As a city, and CIBC as a bank must recognize that. The new capacity that is emerging is going to be almost invisible. It's going to be companies that provide solutions as opposed to goods. It will be value-added services. Canada, and especially Toronto, is an economy that actually producing more services than goods. 80% of our job creation now in the country, and more so in Toronto, the service industry. You ask people about Canada, they will say, oh, oil. No. We are a service-producing country. 80% of our GDP, services. 70% of our employment, services. Now, what about trade? Official numbers are telling us that it's only 10% of our exports, services. But that's not correct, and that's where we enter the story. Because you look at this BlackBerry. When Stats Canada measures where the value of exports, they just measure the value of this device going there. That's it. The engineering, the design, the marketing, all the services that are in it, nothing. If you measure it correctly, namely the value added that goes into this, all of a sudden, our services, business services, 45% of exports, almost half, and it's rising at a rate we haven't seen before. This means that even within the export domain, the manufacturing sector that is emerging is a very different manufacturing sector, solutions as opposed to goods, value added as opposed to just building something. It's not going to be factories, it's going to be startups. And as a society, as a city, I would suggest, we are not well equipped to deal with that. The financing model, not there. Banks, I will admit, are still unable to deal with this kind of activity. We are going to see small companies starting a project that will have 5 different partners from all over the world. The very definition of a business will be very different. We don't know how to provide a loan to this kind of entity. So there is a liquidity gap, financing gap. And there are venture capitals that, listen to this, 80% of money in venture capitals that are coming to Canada, coming from the US, not from Canada. We must understand the new manufacturing that is emerging with major implications for trade. Because if we cannot finance this new manufacturing, it will lag behind. Because in Germany, in the US, they are moving ahead. And of course, Toronto is basically the center of it. So as a city, we have to understand the changing face of manufacturing. That's the way I see the situation. So talking about other issues that might impact the city, I must discuss real estate. Because I believe that the Bank of Canada already cut interest rates dramatically. The 5-year rate is at a rate we haven't seen before. And now they might be cutting again. And the key issue is to what extent this city, alongside Vancouver, to what extent we are relying too heavily on real estate in terms of development charges, that is a major force, but also in terms of economic activity. Employment, overall GDP in this city. And if something bad happens to housing, what does it mean for the city as a whole in terms of employment? Are we going to go into a recession in Toronto if something bad happens in the housing market? We have to understand that. The main reason why I believe that interest rates should not be going down is because of the fact that we have a generation of Canadians that never experienced high or even rising interest rates. For them, those low, extremely low mortgage rates, that's the norm. And people say, yes, but they are so low. I remember when interest rates were 12%. Irrelevant. 100% of all debt taken in this city and in this country was taken in extremely low mortgage rates. You raise mortgage rates by 1%. In many cases, that will double the payment. And you will see many people unable to do so. As a society, we are more sensitive to the risk of higher interest rates than any other time in history. And I suggest that maybe even the city is sensitive to higher interest rates. That's why I'm against cutting interest rates again, because that's fueling this fire. Now, I believe that despite the fact that there is a lot of media reports against, about the condo market and too much, and I can tell you in New York, in Boston, you go to places like that, and they are convinced that Toronto is the poster child of a real estate bubble. And they are convinced that we will crash because they come here and they count cranes. And I cannot blame them, because I'm sure that somebody in 2006 told them, subprime, don't worry about it, everything is okay. They went through it. And now they see all those condos in Toronto, and they say, we are basically going to crash. And I totally understand that. I gave a speech to my board of directors, and they asked me to make a brief statement about real estate, and I said, the only brief statement I can make about real estate is that I cannot make a brief statement about real estate. It is very complex, including Toronto, a very complex market. The high-rise market is a market that serves a purpose, because we have the green belt, and the green belt means, and by the way, our green belt is 50% larger than the green belt of London, England. And there they are blaming high prices due to the green belt. So clearly, the green belt is a major issue. So there's no supply of low-rise, and that's why high-rise is going to the sky. And if you do the math, we are not overshooting in any significant way. We are maybe overshooting a little bit. My issue is that a lot of the activity that we are seeing is actually domestic investors. There is too much focus on foreign investors. The issue is actually domestic investors, because those domestic investors, they are counting basis points. For them, this condo investment is a replacement for GIC. The minute interest rates start rising and the math does not work and they are losing money, they will start selling. And when they sell and people are still building, you have excess supply and prices go down. And I suggest that that will happen when interest rates start rising. But in between, interest rates will remain low. I'm just saying we should not add fuel to this fire. Now, the issue is that the good news is that interest rates will be rising very, very slowly, maybe in 2017, 2018. So we will be tested, but I don't think that the test will be very severe, because comparing Canada to the US is not only wrong, but also irresponsible. There is some logic to this madness. So that's the way I see real estate. Real estate will continue to be a significant force in this city in 2016, 2017. At one point, we will be tested. Prices, especially in low quality, low location condos, probably will go down, but that will be a good thing, not a bad thing. Supply is a major issue, and as long as we have the green belt, this will remain an issue, like in many other cities like Vancouver. Vancouver is basically 10, 15 years ahead of Toronto. That's basically what. So it's not that we are building something that is totally crazy, but clearly we have an affordability crisis for young kids here. We know that. We know that, and unfortunately that will continue, and you will see more and more people renting, and we'll see more purpose-built being built in this city. The real estate market is changing. I think the home ownership rate is at its peak, and you will see more and more rental activity again. As a city, we have to understand that. So as you can see, a lot of moving targets. All this is basically a derivative of the 2008 crisis, because we solved the 2008 crisis by injecting liquidity into the market and building this equilibrium where there was too much saving one place and too much bad investment elsewhere. Now we are going back to semi-normal, but between now and then there will be some pain. And pain is always faster than gain. And that's more or less where we are. Now, if you have any questions or any comments.
Great. Thank you very much. I have a small list going. Councillor Carroll, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay.
Very much for your
Thank
presentation.
My light isn't on. Is my microphone working now? My. That's it. Oh, okay. Where do I start? So the issue of manufacturing capacity, and it's so tied to the dollar. But you mentioned that Mexico is always a challenge. So if we invest in the capacity so that we can make use of the low dollar, do we ever catch up with Mexico, or do we just sort of avoid trying to correct the auto sector?
Well, I think that the auto sector, Mexico is the auto sector, yeah?
Yeah.
I would say the following. I would say that, yes, the auto sector needs some help, but I think that the help should come in the direction of where the Mexicans cannot compete, and that's high-tech,
gotta analyze
research
that.
and development, as opposed to mass production. Unfortunately, mass production, what we can do is at the margin, and the wage gap is so huge, and their quality is rising, and their currency went down. It's so difficult to compete. So mass production will be difficult, but we have to rebuild. Look at Australia. Australia was a huge auto-producing country, now less so, but you can focus on what they cannot do. Basically, high-tech, and those
Value-added solutions,
value-added
stuff
solutions,
they can.
stuff like that we can. This will not be a major employer like the way it used to. That's why we have to, nourish this value-added segment of the manufacturing sector. Not doing it and trying to go back to what's familiar is not the solution, because things are changing.
Okay. There was an article recently about the dire state of empty office real estate in the core of Calgary. Are they a threat in terms of our knowledge economy and all the work we've done to get our downtown core real estate filled up with knowledge economy startups?
I view Calgary as a separate entity, in a sense that what's happening in Calgary will have very little impact on what's happening in Toronto. It's a very specific shock that is specific to Alberta. Unfortunately, they are in a process of building 8% of inventory, so their vacancy rate will rise dramatically over the next 2 years. That's why I said this is just the beginning in Calgary.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, what is the impact on Toronto? I think it's almost zero. I think that it's totally different stories. In fact, Toronto will benefit from the miseries of Alberta, unfortunately, because you will see a lot of people actually leaving Alberta coming to Toronto or to the Eastern Canada, Montreal. Beyond that, I think that the commercial real estate in Toronto, although oversupplied a little bit, I think that it's in a reasonable shape.
Yeah.
Calgary is not going to be a good story, unfortunately.
Can I ask one more?
You got some?
Oh, okay. The other question is about the residential real estate market. Councillors, I don't think I'm unique in this. We're starting to see a slowdown in picking up building permits anyway. is the real estate market, particularly the residential market, are they already trying to adjust to these things? Because they seem to, despite, we were overwhelmed by processing approvals, but now we got a lot of urban blight, empty sites, and they're not picking up the building permit.
Yes, the short answer is yes. As opposed to the U.S. and as opposed to places like New York, Chicago, Toronto is the builder community in Toronto is like a family. You can put them in this kind of room and they can talk to each other. Everybody knows each other, so it's the approach is coordinated almost. And this is a very, they are responding. It's a very responsive group. They sense the market and they react. And what we're seeing now is that people are starting to slow down in terms of new building because we are in a process where there is a bit of excess supply. And again, I don't think that this market will be tested until interest rates start rising, but they are starting to see that there is a bit of excess supply and they're starting to slow down. There is another issue here, is that we are actually at a point where the condo market is starting to compete with purpose build. As you know, until now we didn't have a purpose build going on. Now it's starting. Institutional investors, big investors, are saying, you know what, we are going to build or convert something.
Some conversions.
Exactly, to rental. Now, this rental will not be the old-fashioned rental. It will be a high quality. It will be for older people. It will be. So the condo market and the purpose build, although purpose build is still only very small, it's like 3,000 or 4,000 as opposed to 20, from 20,000. So it's still small, but it's rising. If they are going to go after the same households, then we'll have excess supply. But if they go for more affluent renters or older people, and they will go through for the students, then we are okay. So we are now in a decision point. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cho, the question?
Thank you. Thank you very much. You cover so many areas. Now, I have a couple of questions. While I was driving this morning, I heard that the Canadian value in response to the U.S. is below 69 cents. So under this kind of economic condition or situation, what kind of advantage Toronto could take? Well, if it's a good time to make investment to Toronto, if that is the case, which area will you recommend?
Well, I think that Canada is on sale now as far as many foreign investors are concerned, Americans and Chinese. I will not be surprised if over the next year you will see more, not less, Chinese money coming to real estate in Canada, in Toronto, and in Vancouver, because they are under the risk that their currency will go down. They got 30% discount on our currency, so you will see more money. We can also try to attract American money to invest because we are extremely cheap in terms of labor, in terms of staff. I suggest that it will not be the old-fashioned manufacturing, but we can even take companies in the U.S. that can invest in value-added and supply fund to those startups. I think that that will be a very, very good thing. And we, as a city, try to market the fact that we are relatively cheap at this point. And more or less, I think that's on a permanent basis. I don't think it will go back to parity. So I think that's a very good thing. In terms of exports, if we can basically give those exporters the extra push, marketing, I think that's a good time because, the currency is really relatively cheap at this point relative to parity, so we can push that. The only two negatives. One is that if you went to the supermarket, you know what I'm talking about. Food prices are rising because of imported food. The other is that to the extent that we need enhanced productivity through import, that's more expensive. So those two factors are negative. But overall, the lower dollar, to me, is a major, major positive. Tourism is another issue. We have to market Toronto now as a major destination. We are really a bargain.
I have so many questions, but I'll ask you one more. One of the major decisions our city council has to make is public transit, whether we should go more for LRT, light rapid transit, or subway. So what's your recommendation? Which way we should go, more subway or LRT, and how it's going to affect 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of time?
No, I don't know. I will not get into that because that's your business.
Okay, that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's your
Thank you.
business. But,
Thank you
but
very
I-
much,
what I will say is that the only thing that we will see more and more infrastructure coming from the federal government, because I think that the inclination now is to actually increase the budget deficit, which I support. So cities probably will get more money when it comes to infrastructure, as opposed to the distribution. That's you guys.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Frакadakis to ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Tull, for your excellent presentation. Mine is just a follow-up on Councillor Cho's, not about the subway or the LRT, but about the dollar. And I'm just wondering, how can our service sector take better use of the lower dollar?
Yes, I think that it's a very, very good time for our service sector to export what we know. As I said, exporting services, people don't think in terms of exporting services because, you know, in Economics 101, they will tell you can trade only goods because you cannot export an haircut, yeah? That's not the case anymore. We can export our engineering, accounting, anything that requires, just you send an email, and that's export, yeah? You send an attachment. And so the dollar is attractive. What we need to do now is basically do a lot of good marketing work to make sure that people know that we are capable of doing it. We have a lot of excellent research and development facilities here, and we must find a way to finance them. And the current system is not working. We have to work with banks and alternative providers, and that's extremely important because if they can get the financing, the rest will do the work.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Toll, I just have a couple of questions around, sorry? Oh, I didn't see your hand, Councillor. Okay. Oh, please go ahead, Councillor. No, not at all, please.
One clarification more. Again, I thank you as well for coming in. And I think I heard you earlier speak to the fact that lower rates could trigger a recession. Rising rates, then gradual rising rates over the number of years would trigger sales of properties, residential properties, and over inventory. We've had low rates have been the norm for the longest time right now. I personally don't see what the issue is. Even if the rates are adjusted slightly lower, slightly higher, we've been monitoring, rates have been relatively constant for quite a long time now. So I just don't quite understand what the concern might be.
Yeah, okay, a few things. First of all, I totally agree that low interest rates, if they go lower, they cannot really fuel the credit market anymore because people are not so excited about it anymore. It's part of what this generation knows. Mm-hmm. The issue is that, again, that's going back to the vulnerability in the housing market. The fastest, listen to this, the fastest growing segment of the real estate market in Canada is subprime.
Mm-hmm.
Remember subprime?
Yep.
It's rising at 20% a year. Now, why? Because the regulators are regulating the banks. If you are self-employed, if you are a new immigrant, banks cannot touch you now because of OSFI. So those self-employed or those new immigrants, they go here to the unregulated segment of the market. So ironically, we are transferring risk from the regulated segment of the market to the unregulated segment of the market. This is not a zero-sum game. The risk profile is rising, ironically, due to efforts to reduce the risk profile. Now, the good news is that the subprime market in Canada today is roughly 4%. In the US, it was 33% in 2006, so it's a baby. But babies do grow up. And if we continue at this rate, that will not be a good thing. So my issue is that when you lower interest rates, even lower, that's where you get the most reaction in the subprime segment of the market because they are sensitive to rates. Interest rates, even if they go up quickly, tomorrow, if tomorrow for some reason interest rates go up by only 2%, tomorrow, this housing market will crash. If it goes up by 200 basis points or 2% over a period of 3 years, the housing market will not crash. So it's a shock. And that's why I think that it's very important not to have a situation in which you lower too much and then you actually have to compensate for that. The speed is as important as the magnitude.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor. Mr. Chol, a couple of questions for me. What is, in your opinion or views, the role of municipal governments in, obviously, economic development, encouraging businesses to focus on exporting internationally to really compete? You talk a little bit about the need in terms of where we are in sectors and manufacturing and what we need to be doing. What do you see as the role of municipal government?
It's very difficult because, as you know, there is so many forces, the federal government, the provincial, and then you. I see, first of all, you putting a lot of pressure on the provincial government and federal government to understand the topics. And then infrastructure, for example. I believe that the Trudeau government, and I told them that, should be spending more on infrastructure and even raise the budget deficit to more than it is because, as we mentioned, monetary policy is very limited in its ability. And therefore, the issue with infrastructure is that you can waste a lot of money. Infrastructure is the best way to get, we call it the economic multiplier, basically how much money you get out of each dollar that you spend. Tax cuts versus infrastructure versus whatever. And infrastructure is probably the highest multiplier. But within infrastructure, you can have all kinds of Mickey Mouse type projects that will not do. Toronto can come up with a priority and say, okay, that's where we see the infrastructure. And by the way, give us extra few $1 billion for that. But your job, I think, is to prioritize where the money is best spent and how efficient things can be. Because money can be wasted. We have seen it before in many cases. So that's one thing. Second is the role of marketing. I think that marketing the city, nobody will do it better than the city. And I think that working with the private sector and really going to the US and market Canada and Toronto as a best bet, good place to do business, show the high-tech potential of this city. And I think that that's another thing that we can do. So a lot of things.
Okay, thank you. My second question, sir, you talk a little bit about domestic investors and our efforts to attract foreign investors and so on, which is something that we've been keying on. So with evaluation of a percentage factor, let's say the Canadian dollar is worth 30% less at the moment, so it's attractive for foreign investors who want to come in. For the domestic market, domestic investors are saying, well, we've got a low dollar, low interest rate. The gain and benefits for them, as they see it, would not be that advantageous as it would be for the foreign investors. What are some of the tools or some of the things that you would suggest to perhaps offer or suggest that the domestic investor should be looking at to be able to invest locally in the domestic marketplace?
Yeah, domestic investors react to one thing, and that's growth. Economic growth. To the extent that we create the fundamentals for better economic growth, and that goes back to foreign investors and to allowing, promoting exports, that will come. So we looked at what's the motivation for external versus domestic investment. External is more kind of valuations. It's many sophisticated variables. What domestic investors want is very stable, predictable growth. To me, taking advantage of the low dollar vis-a-vis better export market can do the trick here and provide signals of success.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chol. There are no further questions of you, and we will thank Mr. Benjamin Chol, who is, as you know, the Deputy Chief Economist for the CIBC World Markets. He is no stranger to this committee, and he always leaves us wanting more. I know that you have limited time. We had to sort of coordinate the agenda of this committee to be able to accommodate you, and we were very pleased to do so. You have given us, obviously, a lot to ponder and to think about as it relates to some of the decisions that we're making as an Economic Development Committee and as a city. As always, your wise words are helpful to us and we certainly will take heed to many of the suggestions that you've offered us. City of Toronto, and one of the things that this committee will be doing is looking at a global approach in terms of how we can encourage more of our manufacturers to export their products to the United States and other countries where we have actually been developing relationships, both in terms of a sister city relationships, but also just in terms of relationships that we are trying to develop and MOUs that we are putting together so as to attract more opportunities for our local businesses to go internationally. That's an approach. Obviously, when you talk about the domestic investors, which is an area that we realize that we need to reach, we have many Canadian companies or Canadian investors who are setting up in places like Silicon Valleys and other places like that, but are unwilling to invest here. As you pointed out, 80% of the VCs who come are from the U.S. and elsewhere to actually take advantage of opportunities here. We just have to kind of shift that pendulum and turn it around. So we are aware that it's uncharted territories that we're venturing into. We are obviously hopeful that council will actually heed and recognize our suggestions and our direction based on the resources that we've actually put in and the research in terms of the markets and so on. So I'm very pleased to hear what you're saying here today, because it really speaks to a direction that we're focusing on. And again, we're always very delighted to have you with us, and I'd like to thank you very much for coming to present today.
Thank you, a pleasure.
Round of applause. Thank you very much. And members, I just want to move a quick motion to receive Mr. Tall's oral presentation. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. I also want to remind everyone that the screen at the back, or at the side to my left, and for most of you your right, of the room provides real-time update with respect to where we are on the agenda and also what is actually coming up next. And for those who are watching online or on television, you can follow the agenda and debate on your computer or tablet or smartphone at www.toronto.ca/council. I also want to remind everyone, some folks, that there is another meeting that's taking place as well. Are they done? Wow. Parks and Environment or Recreation, where Environment was actually meeting in Community Room 1. Okay, so members, I'd like to proceed with the agenda, if I can just vet it through the agenda. We've dealt with ED 9.1, and ED 9.2 is a presentation from myself. We're just going to hold that, okay? And ED 9.3 we've just dealt with. ED 9.4, again, let me read out what ED 9.2 is. It's a presentation from myself in terms of updates of our activities in 2015 and priorities for 2016. And we have just received ED 9.3, the overview, the economic forecast from Mr. Tall. ED 9.4, that's the economic dashboard.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we don't always hold it, but I don't want to put the general manager on the spot, but I'm wondering if there's anything he wants to point us to vis-a-vis Mr. Tall's remarks, or do you want to wait till next month to do that? Is there anything in the dashboard that says this is what Ben was talking about, or should I hold it, or do you want to maybe present next month?
I'd rather do it next month when we have full year data, and we would normally do that.
Oh, the full.
There's nothing in the dashboard that contradicts what
Right,
Mr. Tall
yeah,
said.
yeah. Okay, just remember everything he said.
All right, so then can I take it from you, Councilor? We can move that?
So I'll move it.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. ED 9.5, new perspective on opportunities for people and information. We have a presentation on that, right?
Yes.
We have a presentation, so I will hold that down. And ED 9.6, business improvement areas, BIAs, 2016 operating budget. Councillor Kelly is moving approval. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. And then ED 9.7, Toronto Horticultural Exposition for Canada Sesquicentennials. Councillor?
Yes, sorry, I'll be very brief. I'm going to move my motion and just provide a little bit of context for people so they can kind of figure out why this actually issue is here. I had originally approached the general manager of Parks, Forestry and Recreation about this idea, and they're very excited and are working on this initiative. and preparing a report, but we were told that it couldn't go to the Parks and Environment Committee because it's actually a tourism issue, and tourism is dealt with at Economic Development. So that's why it's joint between this division and the Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Division, and they're going to work together on this matter. And I've spoken to the General Manager of Economic Development and Culture, and he's speaking with Ms. Romoff about this. So that's the context for anyone who was confused.
All right, so members, Councillor Kelly, you wanted to speak on this issue? So if you do, can I, okay, because this is sort of, we're vetting the agenda right now, so can we then hold this for a quick moment? Okay? I know it's unless you're going to speak for at length, is it a? No. Okay, so members, if just something wants to say about the report? Okay, so then we will then just deal with this particular item then? Is that okay?
I have two motions. The first is to defer. That's in light of the communication from the...
Okay, so let's hold it down then, please. Okay, let me hold this down, Councillor. We'll hold this down, and maybe you can speak with Councillor Rakadakis and the General Manager and so on, but let's hold this down. Okay? And I think that's it. We're going back to... Okay. So we are going to now my presentation to members of committee, which would be ED 9.2. And this is something that we do annually. And so I'd like to, let me just get this on here, Madam Clerk, maybe just that. Okay. So members of committee, over the last 5 years under the stewardship of this committee, the Economic Development and Cultural Division has made, as you know, substantial progress in advancing Toronto's economic interests. Our Collaborating for Competitiveness initiatives have enabled the city to improve significantly the way we work with business to build the city's economy. Work is done or actively or nearly all on nearly all of the recommendations brought forward by business and labor leaders participating in the initiative. We are, in fact, well on the way in our efforts to generate the 35,000 new jobs per year. On the cultural side, our Creative Capital Gains initiative has injected new energy, new support, and a new collaborative mindset in our arts and cultural sector. Almost all of the recommendations brought forward by arts and cultural leaders through this initiative have been implemented, and 2/3 of them are either completed or expanding their scope. The city's Working as One employment strategy, introduced in 2012, is in fact having a significant impact on employment. Through Working as One, the initiative, the city now offers more than 100 employment and training program. And in 2015, the PAY program alone connected more than 1,100 young people to jobs. This is an area that we are working hard on. Our new youth equity strategy is also helping to boost youth employment. The program provides services to support vulnerable young people to divert them from being drawn into violent behaviors and crime. Under the strategy, the city is leveraging its position as an employer to improve their access to jobs. The 10 customized recruiting events already held engaged some 2,800 vulnerable young people. The Strong Neighborhood Strategy of 2020, which is holistic with its holistic approach to building healthier communities, will also create new economic opportunities and jobs in the year ahead. The Economic Development Committee has set a number of priorities for the current term. Work on these priorities are well on the way. We are upgrading city's processes to improve internal efficiency and to make it, in fact, easier to do business with the city. We are boosting organic growth by supporting activities that create jobs and help our businesses grow. We heard Mr. Toll earlier about growing the economy and the benefits that would accrue. We will soon launch an export trade initiative that will open new doors to international marketplaces for Toronto businesses. We are working with our neighboring municipalities, the province and federal government, to transform the way we attract foreign direct investment. The city is also proactively working in collaboration with a broad range of stakeholders to develop new economic opportunities and jobs. In 2015, we established a Toronto Startup Ecosystem Strategy. This initiative has set the ambitious goal of making Toronto the startup capital of the world, the ideal place to start and grow a business. The Pan Am Para-Pan Am Games also provided an economic and cultural boost for the city in 2015. The Torch Relay, the Luminous Veil, and Panamania Live were a major success, and also the Great Toronto Sign. The Games generated substantial infrastructure and tourism spending, and they expanded international awareness of Toronto as one of the world's coolest and most impressive cities. Also in 2015, the city created the Toronto Youth Jobs Course. The course is a full-time paid employment preparation program for youth. Young people who complete the program receive ongoing help to develop skills and to find employment. Our progress in transforming the city's economic development activities over the past 5 years is impressive, especially given the financial constraint we have faced. But many challenges still lie ahead. Most significantly is ensuring that we find the necessary resources, financial and otherwise, to maintain our momentum and to build on the strategic service platform we have established. It is, in my view, imperative for the City of Toronto to continue investing in our economic development infrastructure and activities if we hope to increase employment, expand our tax base, and attract new investment. Business also needs access to state-of-the-art technology backbone. This committee must be diligent to advocate for this and, in fact, to reinforcing and expanding Toronto's Smart Cities initiatives. Smart Cities technology should be built into the services the city offers businesses. We have to ensure that Toronto installs, maintain, and upgrade its technology backbone to remain a world leader in this domain. Toronto's economic future hinges on our ability to go globally. We are already ranked amongst the best cities in the world. In my view, we should move quickly and decisively to translate our growing positive brand recognition into economic success. We are undertaking a number of initiatives to make this happen. First, EDC is currently finalizing a global marketing strategy that will unite all of our international efforts under one strategic umbrella. EDC will present its proposal at this committee within the next few months. EDC is also busy preparing to launch Toronto Export Trade Initiative. It will draw upon the existing federal, provincial, and city, and also the private sector resources to help businesses penetrate new market and obviously to drive growth in the economy. We have begun laying the groundwork by taking the following steps: cultivating and expanding international alliances, such as the Toronto-Chicago Music Exchange. We have signed an MOU with Invest Sao Paulo. We have also signed an MOU with the Trace region in Turkey. We have also are looking at how we can improve opportunities with respect to China, Japan, and India. We are negotiating a memorandum of understanding with the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and industry, establishing collaboration with the film and animation industry, and also reinforcing and expanding our Music City alliances with Austin, Texas. We've also recently been contacted by Nashville about forming an alliance with them as well. I can also tell you that the Toronto Music Strategy is being worked upon. Councillor Carroll and I and others and staff met yesterday, along with the 30 members who are part of the industry who are working with us in order to put the sort of final elements to the draft document that will be brought forward, and we will hopefully have that at our committee next month. We are, in fact, building collaborations and relationships such as these are important and, in fact, are critical to us in terms of opening international doors for Toronto's business, potential business and cultural exporters. And let me give you an example. I met 2 days ago with a manufacturer of circuit boards in Scarborough. They, in fact, are a growing company. And they indicated to us that there is a need for assistance from the municipal level of government in helping them in terms of penetrating new markets. What was surprising, though, is that they are, in fact, buying companies in places like China and elsewhere. And this company is saying to us that there is a need for more assistance from their municipal government to help them to be able to expand and to grow their business. So it's important in terms of what we do in terms of putting forward a plan to help our local businesses to go globally. Second, we must continue to work with our regional partners to transform our approach to foreign direct investment by establishing a new well-resourced regional FDI agency. This agency, which was formally established at the beginning of this year, in fact, on January 1st, such an agency took basically a step in terms of becoming this organization that will brand and take us, the region, globally. And in fact, the brand Toronto, which is a brand that's recognized around the world, will be of great benefits to the entire region. So this Toronto Global Strategy will, in fact, help the region and help the City of Toronto. And based on what we have learned from, obviously, the world's best-in-class FDI cities, we expect this new agency to, in fact, generate substantial increased foreign investment in the GTA, creating the jobs, creating the opportunities for, obviously, generating new resources for the city. We're currently working with the agency to complete the integration of Invest Toronto and other existing regional entities into this new organization. It is projected that this agency will be fully operational as of April 1st, 2016. And finally, more work needs to be done to improve the measurability of economic development initiatives. These are intrinsically difficult, but must be done. We must understand outcomes. We must understand, obviously, the number of areas that we are actually working in. But we have to assess and we have to understand the results that are coming from the initiatives that we're involved in. So we must maximize results. We need, in fact, meaningful performance matrix for everyday programs that, in fact, we implement. The only way we know, in fact, or the only way we will know whether or not our programs are delivering the values is to have performance data, to be able to measure whether or not the things that we're doing are useful. So unless we can measure how successful each program is meeting its objectives, we don't know whether or not we should change our approaches. We don't know whether or not, in fact, the program itself is doing what it is that we actually want it to do, or whether or not we need to fine-tune our activities, or whether or not we just simply write off the program altogether and then obviously put our resources into something else. So I think this is extremely important. Over the last number of years, we have gone through a tremendous amount of work and effort to reorganize and restructure and put in place the appropriate personnel to ensure that EDC is working on all cylinders. I'm very pleased to report we are there at this particular point in time. So I'm looking forward to this great group of people working diligently in order to ensure that our objectives, our goals are are going to be accomplished for 2016. I see 2016 as the year that we can take a significant leap forward in all of these areas. Over the past 5 years, this committee has overseen a significant transformation in the way that the city handles its economic development and cultural portfolio, and also relationship with business and getting the business community involved and working together. We are tasked with a tremendous opportunity to help this city grow. I invite people from all business, culture, and the social sector to collaborate with us to ensure further transformation that has to continue and take place. Working together, we can, in fact, make our great city even more prosperous and more energetic and more livable for all Torontonians. After all, we don't want to leave any group, any person behind. We want to ensure that there's opportunities for all. Through this collaborative effort, we can succeed in making this a reality. Those are my remarks for the 2016 road ahead. I don't know if there's any questions based on the comments I've just communicated to members of committee. Seeing two. Councillor Cho to begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a very good presentation. I appreciate that. Now we have a new government. The Prime Minister was here, and I didn't see you when he was here. By the way, what kind of strategy we think we should form to work intergovernmentally, especially with the federal government? See, we are a baby of a provincial government, so often we don't have a direct connection with the federal. So any strategy in that area?
Well, I think, Councillor Cho, I think that the work that Mayor Tory has been doing to date is indicative of the fact that Toronto is viewed quite differently than many other municipalities across the country, being the largest city. The fact that the Prime Minister came to Toronto to visit, and is the first Prime Minister to have come in the last 18 years, I think that's significant. The Mayor does have a strategy, and I don't think I really want to speak to that. I think that we should allow the Mayor to actually speak to his vision, because I think it is not simply the germane responsibility of economic development. All I can say to you is this: with the Mayor's effort in order to create opportunity where infrastructure investment will come to Toronto, and Mr. Tall this morning, when he expressed that municipalities can and should put more pressures on the federal and provincial government to ensure that those investments are actually being made. I think the Mayor is doing an amazing job at that at this particular point in time. So I think that we'll see the benefits that will accrue all across the city of Toronto shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll?
Well, yes, but my questions, they might be a mixture of being for you and for the general manager.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
I wonder if we can get your attention.
Just, you may want to get in on the answering of this.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering about, in the context of Ben Tall's comments this morning, in terms of an export trade initiative, our foreign direct investment, the Mayor spoke about that at his inaugural meeting, but we continue to hear Ben come forward, Ed Clark complains about it sometimes too, that in terms of venture capitalists, they're all American or other, there's a very small fraction from inside. So do we have any kind of expansion? Do we have a pitch that says, why aren't Canadians investing? There is Canadian wealth. We know there is. I go to Shops at Don Mills. I see it every day at the Michael Kors store. But they're not investing domestically. Do we have a secondary strategy on that front to try and grow venture capitalism domestically?
So, two components to an answer. First of all, one is to encourage foreign investment to keep their investment here rather than move them down.
Right.
And there is some action on that. The provincial government and others are trying to focus on that. One of the challenges there is tax legislation and the way it's treated in terms of realizing gains here versus there. The second one, in terms of encouraging Canadian investors, there are a couple of moves afoot, again, not at the municipal level. Pass-through shares allows investments. It's very popular in the mining industry, and there are a number of moves afoot to try to get that to be used in other sectors as well, especially those like biotech, which require long lead times for investment.
Yeah.
In terms of what the city can do to encourage private investment, we do that through our incubators and trying to encourage angel investors to step up in those places. And there's more afoot with respect to the whole National Association of Venture Capitalists. But we have very few tools that we can use, and so it's more moral suasion than anything right now.
So,
Right.
Councillor, if I could just add as well, the mayor and I have had this discussion some time ago. We talked a little bit about some of the things that are taking place in Silicon Valley, for example, as an example. As you know, we have a lot of tech startup here, but a lot of the funds are coming from the U.S. as opposed
Right.
to locally. I mean, in fact, we've got Canadian companies who actually will go to set up their VC organization in the U.S. and not here in Toronto.
Right.
We are talking a little bit about that. As you know, the mayor and I and a number of others, Janet Ecker was with us while we approached, the bank in London, England, to look at setting up a facility location here and so on. It's a Hong Kong bank, right, and HSC. And so there's been some discussion. I know that they've added Toronto as their list as a potential place to set up their head office and so on. I mean, so with things like that, it's encouraging, but Mike is right. We as a municipality do not have the ability to simply say, here are policies and so on. It is more of a persuasion and
Yeah,
communication,
yeah.
certainly with
That's why I say pitch.
Prime Minister and the Premier about ensuring that there's those opportunities. The other thing is that Benjamin Toll talked a little bit about this, and we see this in terms of business, the traditional sense of how business start in terms of, you open up and this is a business you're in. There's a number of different elements that actually, in terms of business structure now, and he mentioned the fact that banks are having a hard time trying to figure out how to lend to this new corporate entity just because of the structure and so on. So it poses some difficulty. It is a challenge. It's an area that we realize that needs some attention, but from our perspective, it is more suasion than actually policy directed to make that happen. But also
Right.
the fact is if the economy is growing, things are either being manufactured or services and goods are being traded and so on, the economy is growing, people want to start to look at investing in our economy as such.
That's why I say pitch. I'm not talking about developing any policy. And the other thing I wanted to ask was with regards to the export trade initiative, it sounded like what Ben was saying is we need to do a little analysis, because if we're going out there and we're doing that, there's a vulnerability in terms of competing with Mexico, and he said, analyze it and make sure that you're going to the areas where they can't compete. I'm assuming that's part of this export trade initiative that you mentioned in your presentation.
Yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. I'd like to speak for a minute to your other answers.
Please.
Put me down to that.
Okay. Any further question? Okay. Thank you, Councillor. There are no further questions, so you have the floor to speak.
I've said this before, but I really think you want to take some staff and sit down and talk with them. A lot of people may have noticed there's a vaguely familiar face in the Globe and Mail's Ones to Watch that was in the New Year's edition. One of them was my former EA, Ryan, who runs Creative Commons. I really think you should sit down with him. The reason he was one to watch, and he was lauded for doing all of his work in Silicon Valley, but only took the job as CEO on the condition of, I'm going to live in Toronto.
Yes.
And he talks about this every time. I now have the point, my former EA always picks up the tab when we eat out. He makes way more money than we will ever make. But one of the reasons he wanted to stay here is that's a goal, and he's now strictly private sector, but that's a goal, it's so easy for him to tap money in the United States and elsewhere to build this business, and so hard to tap money in Canada. But in terms of developing a pitch, because I think it is pitch as opposed to policy, you might want to sit down and talk to him, and so that we're all sort of building on that pitch that's happening both on the private side and the public side. Yeah.
Thank you for the comment, Councillor. It's worth noting that myself, Councillor Kelly, and others, we had dinner with him and a number of people in the tech sector about this very issue probably 2 months ago, Councillor. And so you're right. So we've also agreed
Good
that.
things are good. The
No, no,
one
no,
went
no,
to
no.
get the Franken-
No, I was going to follow up, Councillor. I was going to follow up. I was going to say that we have actually agreed that we would look at setting up a time that we would actually get together and sit, and obviously we'd invite you to be part of that. So you're absolutely right.
That would be nice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, so we're there. Councillor Cho to speak?
Yeah, that's it. Doesn't work? Still speak.
It's working.
I didn't have time to prepare the motion, but this is my motion, and then maybe a clerk could help me. The Economic Development Committee requests the Toronto City Council to take a proactive investment campaign internationally to stimulate manufacturing sector in GTA. Now, the jobs disappear, jobs going to the developing countries, and
Go ahead, Councillor.
okay, yeah, okay. So that's my motion, and I hope I will repeat. Economic Development Committee requests the Toronto City Council to take a proactive investment campaign. The council could direct us here to internationally to stimulate the manufacturing sector in GTA. Jobs are disappearing, jobs problem, and the dollar value is going down so drastically, and there's no sign that it will come up soon. So maybe we have to look at the advantage of this negative side. So that's my motion.
Okay.
Another one is, I'm not moving motion, but I think this is time that we have an excellent economic development division. We have a good leader, Mr. Mike Williams. So we have to support our mayor. Well, we've been doing that anyway, but this is the time to reinforce the relationship with the federal government. We have a great leader and all the vision and ambition of our Prime Minister. So we should go beyond the transportation infrastructure and the housing, and how we could work together, Toronto and federal government. I went to the international conference in Beijing about 4 or 5 years ago, and twice. The thing is, every time Beijing takes international, there's always the federal input and vice versa. And we don't have that in Canada. And we have to cooperate, we have to compete with especially faster developing countries, India, China, all that. And we are the economic engine. And I don't think the city has been well utilized by the federal government, and we don't have the same level of cooperation between two governments. So this is a time we have to look at it, and I'm not moving motion, but I'm saying that. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cho. I will just simply say to you, I disagree with you 100%. But let me do this, members. I will ask that Councillor Cho's motion be forwarded to the general manager to be incorporated as part of the work that's being done in the global strategy approach.
That's fine.
I don't agree with Councillor Cho in terms of relationship with either the federal government or provincial government. There's been a lot of work that's been done. In fact, we've talked about it here at this committee. So I will just take it, just say that as it is, but we will incorporate your thoughts, Councillor Cho, because all of those things are being incorporated in the work that is going to be coming. You'll have an opportunity to review that on February 26th, I believe, in order to see where we are. But I want it to be known and recognize that there has been a tremendous amount of collaboration with both the federal government and varying departments, provincial government, and obviously we know that there is a tremendous amount of collaboration that's taking place, right? Discussion with the mayor, the new prime minister, and the varying ministers and so on. So a lot of work's actually being done. I just want it to be known that, to be recognized that that is taking place, as opposed to the thought that somehow that we're missing an opportunity. but I will do that, Councillor Cho, okay? So all those in favor, forwarding Councillor Cho's motion, I don't know if, first of all, I'm sorry, are there any questions on Councillor Cho's motion? If none, we could just... We are, that was the point. I mean, so we'll just forward it on to the General Manager of Economic Development. Okay, Councillor Cho?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. All right, so members, we are going to then move receipt of my presentation. All those in favor, opposed, that's carried, so that's all done. All good? All right, so we're moving on to ED 9.
I'm having trouble attaching it so I can tweet it.
Oh, is it too big?
Frontier of our website.
Right, okay. It's to attach, okay. So, members, we're moving on to now ED 9.5, new perspective and opportunities for people with information technology IT skills in Toronto. And I apologize in advance for the name pronunciation. Sivan Pelvizian and Jonathan Lister. Sivan is the Chief Executive Officer of Civic Action. Mr. Lister is the Country Manager for Canada and Vice President North American Sales and Sales Solution for LinkedIn. And also Patricia Walcott, Patricia, you'll be speaking from there. Patricia Walcott as well, did you want to introduce Patricia, who's a General Manager of Test for Unemployment and Social Services? Patricia, I'll get you to introduce and tee this up because this is from your division area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to the chair and the committee members.
I don't think your mic's working.
Me?
Your mic's not working.
Is it working now?
Yeah, sounds like it's working.
Thank you very much. So I'll do brief introductions and an introduction to this committee, to the presentation overall. So starting with Sivan Pelvizian, she's been the CEO of Civic Action since January 2014. Before Civic Action, she held several senior executive roles with the Ontario government. Notably with the Ontario Place Revitalization Project and launching the Youth and New Professional Secretariat, which included launching the award-winning Learn and Work program for at-risk youth. She frequently contributes to city-building efforts, including serving as a member of the Premier's Community Hubs Advisory Groups, the City of Toronto's Poverty Reduction Strategy, and she's a member of Mayor John Tory's Advisory Council on International Hosting Opportunities. So thank you for coming. I'll introduce also Jonathan Lister, who is the Country Manager for LinkedIn for Canada and Vice President for North American Sales Solutions at LinkedIn. Prior to his tenure at LinkedIn, he worked as the country manager for Google Canada, and he also previously was the senior vice president of operations at AOL Europe. So I really want to note, first of all, the strong linkage between the presentation you're about to have and the previous presentations we had from The Economist and from our chair today. Because now we're talking about the priority of technology and the priorities of collaboration. The City of Toronto has been actively engaged with leading community organizations such as Civic Action and United Way to advance youth employment-related work and common workforce development objectives. These partnerships have enabled further collaboration with the private sector and have ensured that we've had cutting-edge research, programs, and initiatives that support youth employment and the economic vitality of Toronto. As such, we're beginning this year with this presentation because it showcases exciting findings on using real-time data from LinkedIn about the growing technology opportunities in the GTA. This research is the first of its kind in Toronto, and it's the kind of private sector collaboration we really need to see more of. It was led by Civic Action and LinkedIn with support of the City of Toronto, both TES and EDC. And the research shows us that IT skills are in demand where the jobs are and suggests areas for the city to contribute. So I think it really is going to demonstrate that we need to make targeted investments in training and preparation supports for youth and other residents to obtain tech skills which will connect them to jobs in the IT sector. So over to you.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to be with you this morning. Chair, thank you for having this item on the agenda, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Jonathan. We've had an extraordinary set of experiences with LinkedIn Canada over these last 6 months. Have also been very pleased to see the City of Toronto very much at the helm of that. And Pat and your team, and Jennifer Posthumus, your team, has just been extraordinary to work with. So I have the great privilege of being the CEO of Civic Action, and for those who may not be familiar, Civic Action is an organization that sits at the nexus of where the sectors converge. We work on big city building issues, and youth unemployment has been one of those issues that we've been tackling for the past year and a half or so. Within the region, the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, there are as many as 83,000 young people who are not in education, not in employment, and not in training. We know that the youth unemployment rates are twice as high as that of adult rates, and particularly hard hit for Aboriginal youth, Black youth, youth facing disabilities, and newcomer youth as well. And so we wanted at Civic Action to think about some efforts and strategies that would bring the private sector along to tackle much of this journey. We have great leadership with several orders of government that are doing things to target barriered youth unemployment. But the private sector has some opportunities within a unique toolkit to bring some solutions to bear as well. So in the last year and a half, we've done 3 primary things. The first is we worked with a group called NPower to bring them to Canada. And NPower is an organization that brings youth who face barriers and brings them IT skills and training in in-demand areas. We know they're in demand because the private sector has helped to create the program and the curriculum, but also hires these students in internships at the other end of it. Within a very short amount of time, this program has now founded itself in Canada. It's doubled in size, and it's about to intake its 3rd cohort of young people, many of which, I should note, are young women. So a great program to have here, and a great program to see expand for the IT skills and training it offers. The second thing we've done is we've worked with a group called 10,000 Coffees and United Way of Toronto York Region to create networks. We know that many young people who face those barriers because they simply do not have access to the kind of Rolodex or role models that many of us are so privileged to have. Networks intends to take some of the mystery out of creating networks and to bring youth who face barriers to particular employers. And I'm very pleased to say the roster of employers who've signed up for that is very impressive, and train their employees on the unique questions and needs that some of these youth may have to help orient them, equip them, and guide them along the work trajectory. That program has launched in just the last few months, and already nearly 150 youth have gone through it. The final thing we've done, very excitingly, is working with LinkedIn. We all know this. There are jobs without people, there are people without jobs, but how we connect those dots has not always had the kind of 21st century skills that are now available to us. LinkedIn, and you're going to hear more of this from Jonathan, LinkedIn is for me, the Mount Everest of job information. There are 400 million users around the world, and what it can reveal for us, not only where jobs are needed, where skills exist, but where job trends are coming, can bring our readiness to new levels. So we worked with LinkedIn and brought in many of the youth and community workers who themselves do not see fancy budgets to be able to be trained in these 21st century job ways. The job finding journey of the 21st century does not include a help wanted sign or even a faxed resume. It's going online. And we need to bring our youth there, and we also need to bring the youth and community workers there first, because they are giving advice to hundreds and thousands of young people across this region. So this Train the Trainer series of events that we've done have touched hundreds and hundreds of community and youth workers to bring them up to speed on these platforms, and they in turn can inform the young people on how to find new roles. Most excitingly, though, is the work that we've done on the economic graph. This is Canada's first. It's a first for our region, and it's a new way of looking at skills and IT that we've never had access for before. I'm going to turn it over to the talented Jonathan Lister, who will share the findings from this exciting piece of research.
Thank you, Sev, and thank you, Council, for having us here. So I'm here to talk to you about some of the findings that Sev just referenced, and in particular, findings around the percentage of Torontonians, LinkedIn members in Toronto who have tech skills, the labor market, and the ability for people to find employment in tech sector across a wide variety of sectors. And I'm also here to talk about youth, and particularly Toronto as an opportunity in a market for people early in their careers with technology skills. So those are some things I'm going to cover. First, I just want to ground you for a moment in who and what LinkedIn is. Sev referenced the 400 million members. So LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network, 400 million members. We believe, by the way, that there are about 750 million knowledge workers in the world. There are about 3.3 billion people who work. We have 400 million members on LinkedIn. But our mission at LinkedIn is to connect all of the world's professionals and make them more productive and successful. That's what we do, it's what our products do, that's who we are at LinkedIn. And even more specifically, what we're trying to do from a vision perspective is create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. Those 3.3 billion people I just referenced, the 400 million members we currently have now, and for every Torontonian. We're trying to create economic opportunity, and that's what we did and what we're trying to do in Toronto as well. How do we do that? So what happens on LinkedIn, just to kind of bring it to life for you, there's really kind of three things that members do. Members are often trying to find work through LinkedIn and through the LinkedIn network. But as you know, there are lots of people who have jobs, they're dissatisfied with their jobs. In fact, sadly, the vast majority of people are not highly satisfied with their work. So what we're trying to do is help them realize their dream job. So on LinkedIn, that may happen through talking to peers, connecting with industry information, connecting with networks and mentors. All of that helps folks find their dream job. But even better than that, increasingly we're seeing people trying to get really good at what they currently do for a living. And they're doing this because they are getting skills information. They're understanding what skills are necessary to get better at their current job, and they're finding ways to train on those skills and learn those skills through LinkedIn. So really this is what, when we talk about workforce productivity and making professionals more productive, this is the dynamic. This is what happens on LinkedIn. Now, when we thought about, several years ago, we thought about, given this dynamic on LinkedIn, what could we do collectively in the aggregate to better achieve our vision? What we decided to do was look at all the members on LinkedIn and all their aggregate data and try to identify and solve some of the world's thorniest economic challenges. And that's exactly what we did in Toronto. Seb referenced something called the economic graph. What we're trying to do on LinkedIn is to digitally represent every economic opportunity in the world. We're trying to digitally represent every professional in the world, again, all 3.3 billion of them, every company, every job at those companies, every skill required to do those jobs, every school that trains on those skills. And then we are going to institutions, cities like Toronto, academic institutions, commercial businesses, and offering them an opportunity to query that graph and ask that graph different kinds of questions. So that may seem rather esoteric, but let me bring it to life for you because that's exactly what we did in Toronto. As Sev said, a really important partnership for us. And by the way, we're doing this around the world at different cities, but I'm happy to say I think the findings in Toronto are some of the most relevant and interesting findings we've found in any one of these experiments or pilots that we've done with partners around the world. So what specifically did we find? So again, I think this is fascinating. We found that Toronto's tech-skilled LinkedIn membership compares favorably to similar cities around the world. In other words, Toronto compares favorably as a place with technology skills, at or better than its peer group. Second, we found that people with technology skills, LinkedIn members with technology skills, are employed across a vast variety of sectors, not just technology. They don't just work in technology. They work in great roles and at great numbers across a wide variety of sectors. And then finally, and perhaps most relevant to what Seb talked about, is that we found that if you are early in your career with technology skills, Toronto is a great place to start. And I'm going to empirically show you the data in each of these. I'll go through them. I'll show you a little bit of data, and then I want to turn it over to you, ideally for questions and all kinds of feedback as well. Okay? So let me quickly go through the data that we went through to kind of back these up. So first, I'm going to start with, again, who LinkedIn is in Toronto. I gave you the global numbers, but LinkedIn has 11 million members in Canada, so 11 million professionals in Canada, 3.8 million in Ontario, and 1.9 million members in Greater Toronto. In other words, almost 2 million people in Greater Toronto have a LinkedIn profile, or LinkedIn members. When we drill down a little bit of that 1.9 million members in Toronto, 214,000 of them have technology skills. So dynamically, people list their skills on LinkedIn. We can see technology skills. 214,000 of those people have technology skills, okay? That ranks Toronto 5th, and this is my first point that I raised. That makes Toronto, or ranks Toronto 5th of global cities in its technology skills as a percentage of the overall population, right? So you can see Toronto ahead of Los Angeles, ahead of New York, ahead of Chicago, right? In terms of tech-skilled LinkedIn membership. So in other words, Toronto proportionately has a lot of technology-skilled members relative to these other cities, including many Canadian cities. Okay, so Toronto is marketable from that perspective. Shifting gears, I want to talk about the sectors that I referred to. So what this graph is showing you are the sectors in Toronto that employ people with technology skills. And again, you can see that people with tech skills are getting employed across all sectors. Technology is the fourth one down with the blue bar. The blue represents the technology skills, the people with technology skills in those sectors. But you can see financial services and government, professional services like consulting, all employing people with technology skills. So if you have technology skills in Toronto, you'll find Toronto a place where you can get employed across a wide variety of sectors. Okay. Now I'm going to shift gears one more time and talk about youth. So what this chart is saying is that if you are early in your career and have technology skills, Toronto compares favorably to other cities as a place to be employed. Okay, let me explain the chart. The horizontal axis across the bottom refers to percentage of people with technology skills relative to the overall population. So Toronto is somewhere in the 11% range. So 11% of people with technology skills in Toronto. The axis, the y-axis, the vertical axis shows youth, right? So people early in the career as a percentage of overall employment, and that's about it looks just in the 20%, or sorry, just above the 30% range. So you can see that if you are early in your career and you have technology skills, Toronto compares favorably to cities, again, like London or New York or Chicago. Okay? I'm going to go down another level here. And now I'm talking about companies. Okay, this chart refers to companies. There are almost 100,000, 98,000 companies in the Greater Toronto area on LinkedIn. Okay. 25,000 of those employ members, LinkedIn members with technology skills. The 10,000, almost 11,000 at the bottom, refer to companies that employ people early in their career with technology skills. So if you're early in your career, again, with technology skills, 1 in 10 companies hire people like you in Toronto. Okay, so great opportunity for people early in their careers with technology skills. Similar to the chart I showed earlier, this chart is identifying sectors of the industry and the propensity with which they hire people with technology skills, but this is about youth, or people early in their careers, rather. People early in their careers with technology skills, again, find Toronto a place with lots of choice. They can get employed across a wide variety of sectors. And here you see the penetration slightly higher. Again, if you look at the blue bars, the portion of the bars that are blue, professional services, government, financial services, retail, all hiring people early in their careers in Toronto with technology skills. Okay. And then finally, what skills are in demand? So now we're looking at the actual skills that are in demand for people early in their careers with technology skills. So at the top of the list, you'll see mobile development, maybe not surprisingly, but people early in their careers with technology skills, enabling them to develop things on mobile phones, Android, iOS, Apple. Top of the list, right? So those skills are highly sought after in Toronto. Right? Next was game development. And after that, you can see sort of a list, mostly programming languages, but these are the things that are in demand. Empirically, we see on the LinkedIn ecosystem, these are the skills that are in demand by these companies that are employing people early in their careers with technology skills. Okay, so quickly, just to kind of sum up what we found when we looked at the data, right? Toronto compares favorably to its peer group in terms of technology skills, people with technology skills in the labor force as a percentage of the overall population. We found that across a wide variety of sectors, people with technology skills are being hired. And we found that Toronto is a great place to work and start your career if you're early in your career with tech skills. So I'll leave you with some thoughts about things that we are doing in partnership with Civic Action, but also things that I let the council think about and that I think the City of Toronto can also embark on. You know, one, clearly we want to continue to invest in these collaborative workforce development projects. And really, number one, disseminate these findings. These are great findings. They're, you know, for people who are focused on youth employment and trying to skill youth for their first job, their next job, critical. Second, though, we want to use the research of these in-demand skills to help create development programs. So I talked about mobile development and game development. Those are highly sought after skills. We can predict to some extent what employment will be like for people with these skills, and it's great. The third one is we want to promote Toronto as this world-leading jurisdiction. Again, Toronto ranks 5th against its peer set and against global cities in terms of its both tech-skilled labor force and therefore marketability. And I think, you know, most importantly, at least from my perspective, I think one of the challenges we have today, and you heard about this a little bit with the earlier speaker with Benjamin Tao. You know, one of our biggest challenges right now is transparency in the labor force. Right, there are lots of jobs going unfilled. There's of course unemployment. A lot of this is a matching exercise, right? Trying to identify the jobs and trying to match people with those skills to the jobs. And so, as much as we can encourage youth and as much as we can encourage people in the labor force to use these tools, use these online tools, really market themselves, that's helping to create more frictionless and take some of the friction out of the jobs matching process. So as you think about your councils and your constituents, these are some of the things that we're certainly working with and we encourage you guys to think about. So with that, I thank you and I would like to take questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very insightful. Very, very insightful. All right, members, questions?
Well, I didn't know the presentation was going to end right there, but my question was going to be, expand a little more on this idea of friction, the friction in the labor market. Because what you described is probably different from what people's natural inclination to think that means.
Yeah.
Explain your concept again.
Yeah, through the chair, Councillor, I'm referring to the idea that there are a lot of jobs going unfilled in Toronto and in Canada, and there are a lot of, at the same time, there is unemployment, and a lot of the people that are underemployed or unemployed have the skills to do the jobs that are open. They are just unaware of those jobs. And this exists in Toronto, this exists in Canada, and this exists globally. That's the friction that I'm referring to, the friction that there's a transparency issue, that people have these skills but can't identify identify the opportunities. What LinkedIn is doing in partnership with Civic Action, in partnership with communities, is trying to identify both the people with the skills and the jobs that people, and then trying to match the two. And so if you do this online, it's much easier to do. It's much easier to search, find these jobs, apply for these jobs, than it is to do it kind of offline or in kind of a, in a very community-based way. So we're trying to match the two.
How do we deal with there's a struggle though there, because I'm finding that in the youngest part of the labor market, there's a tendency for them to think they have to start out, I'll do this, 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 and this. They'll have 4 or 5 different things that they're doing for free or virtually free, which is stopping them from getting to really figuring out how to get into the active labor market where people are actually paying for knowledge jobs. They get caught up in internships and start layering them until they've eaten up all their time. Is there too much expectation that they start with free internships? Or do we have enough unfilled need in the market that shouldn't be happening anymore? We should be saying to them, no, aggressively get out there and say, this is a paid piece of work you're asking me to do.
Well, I think what we're trying to do here is, we're trying to help identify the skills that are in the highest demand. And that's what you saw here. You saw literally, a list of skills in the highest demand, encouraging people to, train on those skills and get skilled on the skills that are in the highest demand is the surest route to kind of getting to a paying role and a paying job. People that have mobile development skills aren't working for free. They are not interning, right? They are gainfully employed. And so one way around the problem is trying to identify those skills and then train people on those skills. So, LinkedIn, we can see the jobs that go unfilled, and we can see the skills required to do those jobs. And then we can look at the labor market, and we can see the people who have those skills. And
Right.
match them. So your question is I understand it and it's relevant. I think, the jobs market is changing for sure. The sort of demand generation job that asks people to do, part-time work or, that's going to continue. And I think part of what you're talking about is a symptom of that. But in general, what we're trying to do is encourage people to find the most in-demand skills and train on them.
So, and the other thing, and the thing that makes LinkedIn so necessary is that by design, many are opting to move from job to job because you acquire more skills and knowledge economy moves from thing to thing, and so they're doing that. So the second job and the third job and the rest of the career makes LinkedIn very necessary. Is something the city could be doing, being more aggressive about going to our post-secondary partners locally and saying, you're doing the training, you need to invest in placement, you need to be more proactive in making sure job number 1 happens as soon as possible out of post-secondary?
I think empirically, or rather definitely, we should be doing more with our academic institutions to help train people for not just the jobs, but what the jobs market is going to look like for them. The jobs market is going to look very different for people who are entering it now or about to enter it in the next day. It will look very different structurally.
Right.
And I think we need to help prepare them, again, not just for skills, although those are critical, but also understand what that labor market is going to look like. I think there are lots of people who follow exactly the path you said, who do 2-year tours of duty. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as that's their choice. And I think that is large. Again, we see in LinkedIn, we can tell you unequivocally, job tenure has shrunk dramatically over the last 10 or 15 years. And it's shrinking down to that 3- and 2-year tenure. Some of that is by choice because people are accumulating skills at different jobs and they understand that they have to move laterally and they have to move in different ways to get to do the jobs they want to do. Some of it is
Part of the training should be how to build a life around that.
Thank you very
how
much.
to plan for that career.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Cho, a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Thank you so much for the good presentation. And I have a kind of general question and specific questions. I read several articles in different places. Some of the leading economists they claim that within 20, 30 years' time, roughly 80 to 90% of good jobs will disappear because of immigration. Immigration from future, immigration from technology, immigration from automatic stuff, And I have an accountant brother-in-law here now. He says, if you buy one good machine, cost $20,000, $30,000. You put the data in, then the machine does all the job, which take away 50 accountant jobs. That's reality, he says, today. So, is it true it's going to happen that way? That's one question. If that is, then what we could do as a municipal government?
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on immigration. I don't know much about immigration, but
I'm not saying immigrants, okay? Immigration from future, economy and the technology. They take away human jobs, technology.
Well, no question. There's no question.
Is it migration or immigration?
Migration, no, not the migration. Is okay. I make it simpler.
No, I think I can answer.
For example, the auto manufacturing, people used to manufacture cars, now the robots take over.
Yeah.
I should say robots, right?
Right. So yes, I do believe, and I think many people believe that the role of automation and machining is going to dramatically change the workforce. But again, the answer is, what we can look at are, we can get a bit of a crystal ball, because through LinkedIn we can look at the jobs that are being created. So the jobs that are being created in artificial intelligence. Those are very nascent, very new, but then we can start to work with academic institutions to train people on those skills. So let me give you a very specific example. We're working with Seneca College here, and Seneca College is doing precisely that. We are looking at in-demand jobs, and we're looking at the skills required to do those next generation of jobs. We are feeding that information back to Seneca College, and they have then changed their curriculum based on those skills. So that's, we can't predict what's going to happen very well in 10 or 20 years, but we can predict quite accurately what's going to happen in 3 to 5 years. By looking at the jobs that are being created in these new and developing sectors, looking at those skills, feeding the skills back into schools, and getting schools to change curriculum. And that's happening today, albeit in a pilot stage, but that's happening today with academic institutions in Toronto.
Yeah, I'm sure the other people will ask the questions. The second one is, we have very talented people all around the world as new Canadians, but some of them, they have language barriers, cultural barriers, there's subtle discrimination still, no access to big companies, so their talents are wasted. You have any specific idea how city could help these people? I'm sure we're doing that, but I'd like to hear your idea if you have one.
I think, again, as far as LinkedIn is concerned, the principal area of focus is going to be around skills development. So for these very talented individuals, many of whom are on LinkedIn, helping the same issue, helping them identify the roles and helping them promote their skills. I talked about the 1.9 million Torontonians with a LinkedIn profile. That is effectively a branding exercise, and they are branding themselves as marketable in the ways that they, based on their skills. So what we're doing for new Canadians and people of different backgrounds is largely the same, in as much as we're helping them identify opportunities and helping them to promote their skills.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Cho. Councillor Kelly, to question.
Well, I'm trying to get my head around the numbers. 400 million members. That's an incredible number. How many companies are involved?
We don't list the actual number of companies, but it's in the tens of millions. It's in the tens of millions at this point.
Tens of millions of
Globally.
companies. What's the language that's employed, or do you, in approaching the companies, or offering the service to members?
Yeah, principally it's English, but we are in multiple different languages, including Chinese language as of a year and a half ago.
That was one of the things that I noticed, that there were no Chinese cities, at least at first glance, I didn't see any. How do you keep up to date with the information from these companies? I mean, if you got tens of millions, how do you track it? How do you know that your data is current?
Our data is current because it is member-generated data, so we don't input in any data. Companies largely don't.
But how do you, for example, if I had a company, or if I'm the CEO of a company, you're reliant on me entering the data, but...
Well, specifically, I'm reliant on your members, your employees entering the data. So LinkedIn is an aggregate of the 400 million member individuals' data. So people are, they have an incentive, members have an incentive to keep their data up to date on their profile, because that's how they promote themselves. So the data is correct, the data is dynamic, because individual members update the data in order to promote themselves, to build their brand, to tell the world what they do for a living and what their skills are.
At different times in your presentation, you seem to use professionals in certain at times and members in the others. So
there's no distinction. There's no.
Are they interchangeable, or are they synonymous?
They're interchangeable. Yeah, our members are professionals.
Have you, do you have an ability to monitor the effectiveness of the system? Do people have the ability to say, I got a job as a result of?
Yeah, and thanks for asking the question. This is partly why it's really effective, is because, again, you think about what happens in an individual's life. One of the first things that happens when somebody gets a new job or they get promoted is they want to tell people, and they do that through LinkedIn. So we see very quickly when somebody gets promoted, in fact, almost instantly, they'll update their profile to say, I got promoted, I got a new job. And so that's how the data gets refreshed and it stays relevant. And that happens,
To what degree can you attribute the new job to the information or the network that you've presented to them?
Sometimes it's obvious. We know that people apply for jobs through LinkedIn, and we can look at them getting jobs. Sometimes it's inferred. Sometimes it doesn't matter. What we care about are people becoming more productive. We care less about whether or not we were the source. LinkedIn was the source of the instigator of the event.
Have you read Tyler Cowen's Average is Over?
No. I've read parts of it, but I didn't get through it.
Youth unemployment worries all of us, and yet they seem to be the furthest away from being able to utilize your system. Would that be an accurate statement?
I'm not sure what you mean by furthest away. I can tell you. So what we characterize as millennials are currently our fastest growing cohort.
No, I understand that, but it says here on one of your pages that 83,000 young people are not in education, employment, or training. So I'm just wondering how many of those really have the ability to use your system, because it seems to be so IT-oriented, or is that an error of perception on my part?
Question.
Yeah. Tiffany, do you have
Certainly. Through the chair, thanks for the question, Councillor. So the 83,000 number speaks to the number of young people in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area that aren't in education, employment, and training. When we ask why is that number so high? Sometimes it's people cannot get that first job. Sometimes it's that people cannot find a relationship with someone to open a door. There are barriers that keep these young people out. Technology is not traditionally one of those barriers. When we think about the smartphone penetration rate, in particular for millennials or young people, almost all young people have access to some of that technology. And I think that's what's so neat about this LinkedIn profile and some of the other electronic ways of keeping track of ourselves and of our information. You just need your smartphone to be on LinkedIn. You could sit at your desktop to be in LinkedIn. And so it travels with you. Business cards aren't even exchanged in many meetings anymore because you just track someone through LinkedIn. When they leave a job, you don't need to send that email out, it goes in through LinkedIn. So interestingly, the younger generation has the best chance of being able to wrap their arms around this technology because technology is just part of their DNA. What the thrust is, job seeking is changing. How we find a job is changing at lightning speed. They're well equipped in terms of being familiar and used to technology to get there, but the migration, if you will, of the jobs to these new platforms and the young people being skilled to be qualified to take those jobs is where the marriage needs to happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Questions? Okay. Pat, can I just ask you maybe to sum up, if you would like that opportunity?
Thank you very much, through the chair. I really want to thank the presenters, first of all. We're really trying to move to data-driven kind of approaches, reforming our programming in that regard. And certainly the agenda that we're setting forward for the committee is very much linked to this. We want to present to the committee during this year some of our linkages to work-based learning, to our work with the educational sector, our sector-based work, certainly reforming some of our training and the marketing and communication approaches that we have. So there are really strong implications from this presentation and our work going forward. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to both of you for your presentation. It's been very helpful. Members, I'd like to move that we receive move receipt of the presentation. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We are now left, members, with one item, and I'm moving to that item. That is ED 9.7, and we had attempted to dispose of that item earlier. There seems to be a different in perspective. There's, Councillor, 1 second. And so what I'd like to do is, this is Councillor Fracadakis's members' motion, Councillors Committee. Councillor, I'll give you an opportunity to either, are there specific questions, first and foremost, about this issue that we can ask staff and then come back to have people speak and so on?
I was just going to let you know that Mr. Armour from the Parks, Forestry and Recreation Department is actually here to speak, can speak if anyone has questions about the work that the FNR
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. So we do have staff here who are able to address and answer questions on this issue. Where's Mr. Armour? Sir, would you mind taking a seat at the end of the table there, please? We are going to open this up, sir, for questions to you and anyone else, maybe to the general manager as well, by members of the committee. Councillor Fracadakis, would you like to start with questions?
I actually don't have any questions, really, because I've been
No questions? That's fine. Okay, Councillor Kelly, do you have questions? Councillor Kelly, do you have questions? Councillor Kelly, do you have questions of staff?
Well, I guess, not really,
yes? Okay.
not really, but...
Okay, if you don't, Councillor.
Just in a very general way, the Toronto Master Gardeners would like to comment on this, apparently. But they haven't had, I guess, enough notice in order to take a position on this particular initiative. Is there any downside to waiting for them to come here and participate in the debate rather than have them facing a decision that's already made or making their input afterwards to staff but not members of this committee?
Is there a light on there, sir?
Microphones are acting up.
Okay.
Button's broken.
The button is broken.
Okay. We can hear you now, sir.
Through the chair, Councillor Kelly. I don't believe that it would significantly delay us for the Master Gardeners Group to be involved in the discussion. Sorry, through the chair, Councillor Kelly, I don't believe that involving the Master Gardeners Group would delay us in any significant way.
Please, okay, are you done with your question, Councillor? Okay, thank you. So, sir, through the, Councillor Carroll, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling with the answer, because this is asking you to do a report.
Right.
They want to take part in a debate that we can't have till we have the report.
Exactly.
Would it be good for the Master Gardeners if you write the report and then they know what they're concerned about?
Yes, through the chair, that would be the approach, absolutely.
There we go.
Okay, thank you, because that's what's being asked here.
Right.
Okay, fair enough, thank you. All right, speakers. Councillor Frакadakis.
I have a motion, and that is that this committee request the GM of PFNR in consultation with the GM of Economic Development and Culture to report to council through the Economic Development Committee regarding the feasibility of hosting a horticultural exposition for Canada's sesquicentennial. As I said earlier, this is something that I've been chatting with staff in Parks, Forestry and Recreation about. Thought that we could take it through the Parks and Environment Committee, was told otherwise, and so it's here. It's an idea that I think other countries certainly have explored to great success. We have a huge gardening community here in Toronto, and I think, you know, as we talk about tourism, we spoke about it earlier in other presentations, and that the increased importance of that, especially with our declining dollar, this could be another way to get more tourists here of a different variety. So I hope you can support my motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none. To speak, Councillor Kelly.
Mr. Chair, I understand the thrust of the motion. I can be counted amongst those Torontonians who garden. But, you know, all too often, we set out in a direction without public participation in setting that direction. I mean, the assumption is, I guess, that the potential for this is so obvious that you would assume that the Toronto Master Gardeners would be wholeheartedly in support of it. And you may be correct, but, you know, there may be information that we as members of committee should have before we set off in that direction that might be relevant to the final destination. I don't know. That's just an impression that I have. So, Mr. Chair, I was going to offer a motion deferring consideration until the Master Gardeners could come here. Because who knows, they might provide information that would have us move from a very broad motion to a motion that has specific conditions or identifiers in them. But I don't wish to be perceived as obstreperous. So I will not offer that motion. I just hope that the Master Gardeners feel in the end that they had an important role to play in the formation of this initiative.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Carroll, to speak.
Yeah, I'm going to support Councillor Fragedakis's motion, and I'm actually not in favor of deferral, simply because I think they just haven't understand procedurally what's happening here, and that if their concern is that they want some sort of input into this, that they can't really have it until we know the nature of the beast, and we don't know that until the report exists. And so I'd rather see the report created, but I'm not even going to move a motion. It's my expectation always that when staff see someone has a concern, that certainly before we're back here in economic development looking at the report, I'm pretty sure they're going to pick up the phone and say, what's your problem? But let's incorporate that into our comments in the report. That's the way we work always. And so if the issue is they want to be a major collaborator, then you know, there may be others. So we'd rather see the report before we allow one group to stop the action in its tracks. So I think we need to get it on, and what needs to happen, staff will do as an undertaking.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carroll, for your comments. I'm just going to say that in order to initiate this process, we have to refer to the general manager to actually get some work done, write a report, and it has been my experience that there is a great attempt to reach out and to consult with groups and organizations before any reports, whether or not it's this particular issue, horticulture, or any other thing that we do. And when those reports are written, it's offered for public dissemination, for the public to review and to comment or to say, wait a minute, you've missed something, and there's an opportunity to come to committee and or to obviously seek out members of council who can advocate on their behalf and so on and so forth. But there's an opportunity for input, and I think this is really the point that Councillor Kelly wanted to ensure that occurs, and that will occur. I've spoken with the DCM, but it's just natural that we do this on a course of normal civic duty in terms of writing reports and preparing things. Sometimes things are missed, I grant that, but clearly this is not something that's going to be missed. The communication from the communications coordinator of the Master Gardeners is front and center, and it's something that will obviously form part of the discussion in the public consultation process, which we would naturally do. So I am supporting the motion from Councillor Frakadakis, which is to ensure that we move this request to the general manager of economic development, and obviously parks and forestry and recreation will be part of this consultation and so on. And I see that there are many different shifts in people's desire and requirement for tourism and so on and so forth. Councillor Kelly is a master horticulturist, a gardener, and so on. I'm not, but I think that it's appropriate for us to create that environment for those who are interested in this particular area and fully support it. We can only do so through the assenting of information and material coming forward so that we can comment on, but also to consult as well and so on. So I think this is something that we should move forward with, and in order to get the work done so we can get all the parties coming forward to work on this as a feature part of our 150th, right? So, all those in favor of the motion? Oppose? That's carried. There are no opposition to it. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I think we have reached the end. Members, we are about to conclude this meeting to adjourn. I want to take this opportunity, though, to thank all of you for showing up on time. This is a great way to start the new year. I look forward to us continuing this. It was such a different feeling starting on time and not under the pressure of trying to form or get quorum. I know the clerk still has her vibrancy and energy because she's not had to waste it trying to search and find members of this committee. So I want to thank the clerks for their absolute great work.
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair speaking.
if I can just build on your remarks.
You may want to put your mic on.
I'm here on time because I've learned to navigate Richmond Street
Yes, there's a
with
new
the
best lane.
with the bicycle lanes.
Yes.
The timing that I was used to historically is not there any longer. But I certainly took the new timing into account
Right.
when I left for City Hall this morning.
And I think there's a lesson to be learned here from Councillor Kelly with respect to adding features such as bike lanes. I think you have to adjust to accommodate the timing so as not to say, because we've lost a lane, there is an issue while we're late. So this is about how we collaborate with all the different elements, cycling lanes and all the different, and traffic and so on. So move to adjourn. All those in favor? Oppose? That's carried. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah. I didn't realize there was still coffee there.
Well,
Happy New Year.